Okay, I have my tacking done. The next thing we want to figure out is how long the piece of thread is going to be that's going to go all around the cordon. So the best way to figure this out is to start at, we'll call this point A, where we're going in to start the cordon. So somewhere around here is going to be point A. So just loosely run the thread around, and then you can double the threads. So we end up with a pretty long bit of thread by the time we've doubled it. It's a couple of arms length actually, and you know, the longer your thread is, the more likely you can get knots in it. But we're not actually sewing with this piece of thread. We're cutting another piece of thread that we're sewing with. This piece of thread, the bit we're not working with, is going to, you know, hang to the left of what we're doing, but we're going to attach that piece at point A and then work our way around. So I have worked out a route, the maximal route, in my little sewing journal here. And after I take a moment to refresh myself on what the route was, I will show you the route to take. But while you're waiting for me to figure it out, get yourself your little needle, a nice smallish needle, and your Madeira cotton in a number 30, and thread it, because this is going to be the thread that we do our couching stitch on, that holds down that piece of thread that we just cut. So the piece of thread on this isn't nearly so long. It's just a normal kind of a sewing length, and I've come up through the back. I've got a knot in the bottom of the thread to hold it. We don't use that many knots in this, and you'll see why in a while. But I'm at point A, which is the intersection between the outer circle that we made with the egg cup and the leaf, because we're going to go from point A here up to point B at the tip of the leaf with one of the threads. But first, we're going to attach this thread with a stitch, a couching stitch, across the middle of the doubled thread. And in fact, I'm going to do 2 of those couching stitches, just as a kind of an insurance that it's not going to move around. Okay, and you can go down through exactly the same stitch if you want, the same hole, but you do not have to. Now you're saying, oh, why are we doing a single thread if she went to all the thing of telling us it was a double? You won't know why unless you've done the sampler, you see. But this is going to be a double thread, but we're just running a single thread up along the edge of that shape of the edge of the leaf to point B. Then we're going to turn around and double the thread and come back to point A with a double thread for our cordon, okay? So it will be a double thread, but you have to split the thread first in order to do that. So I'm not going to, normally I would do these about a couple of millimeters apart, these couching stitches, very close, but because I'm doubling it and coming back down the same line, that when I'm headed off to point B, I don't have to put the stitches as close together. So the couching stitch obviously just goes across that thread, and the thread stays on the front, and the couching stitch is the only stitch that goes through. So you're going up to here, and I'll show you what to do when you get up to here. So you don't have to do the stitches very close together for this bit, just follow your chalk line. So here I am at point B, and I've done a couple of stitches again at the point where the leaf intersects with that outer circle, and I'm going to come back down and make this into a doubled thread. And this time the couching stitch is going to be much closer. As I say, only about 2 millimeters, which is a bit less than 1/4 of an inch, I think. So, and if you're unsure at all about the couching stitch, go back to part 1 of the sampler project, because I go over the couching stitch in more detail. So we're going to go all the way down with those really, really close stitches, and I'll show it to you when I get back to point A down there with my doubled thread. So here we are back at point A, and we're going to put another couching stitch across both threads, because we're going to head up and around the stem down to a point I'm going to call point C next, and we're going to do it with a doubled thread. Right, I'm back at point C, and my next direction is going to be heading right and bringing my doubled thread all the way around. And back at point A, I'm going to make sure that I get into, as I'm sewing, I'm going to make sure that I get into the center of that loop there to attach it to this new doubled thread and couch across both things. So this ensures the integrity of the piece, that it holds together when you get different threads meeting, to make sure that you couch across both of them. So the same thing will happen when I get over here. I'm going to go into the middle of that loop of point B and couch across. Here I am back from my little journey around from point C all the way around the circle and back again to point C. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go up all the way up here and go to, we'll call that point D, how's that? And head down here. And I'm going to do it with the doubled thread. And down here is where I am going to end the work. Shall we call it point E? And I'll show you how to end off that thread. And I know we haven't done the petals yet, but I didn't want to overcomplicate things doing too much back and forthing up here. So although it's not best practice to add too much in the way of new threads, we are going to add one new doubled thread up here, and I'll show you how to do that. But first, we're going to head up and then back down the side of that leaf, and I'll show you how to finish off when we get down here. Here I am, right back at the cordon, and I have most of the thing done now. I have acres of doubled thread left, because I kind of forgot that I had intended to do the petals in a separate new bit, but that's okay. Better too much thread than too little. So I'm going over this twice with a couching stitch, attaching it to the outer cordon. And then we're going to split, we're going to leave the threaded bit of thread alone for a minute, and we're going to split up these two bits. And actually I'm going to trim them as well a little bit. What I'm going to do is going to deal with them like this. Look, one of them is going to go under some of the cordon stitches to the right. One of them is going under the cordon stitch to the left for a few stitches, and then I'm going to couch stitch over them again, just to really hold them down solidly. So I'll just get these on a needle one by one. I'll leave the needle on the other thing and get a fresh needle for this, and I'll show you what I mean. I'm just doing a couple of couching stitches. Here it's gone the other direction. And we're going to get rid of those tails after I put just a couple of stitches in with the couching thread to hold this down. And then we're finished and we're ready to do the petals up here. So I'll see you for that bit. Just before I get rid of my couching thread, I just wanted to show you how to finish off at the back. It's okay with the couching thread to do a little kind of a loopy knot at the back before you get rid of the thread, or pick up a couple of threads of the fabric before you cut, just to hold it, to stop that from slipping. But there aren't that many times, just at the beginning, at the end, and the end, that you would put a little knot in things. So I'm starting off with a totally new piece of doubled thread here at a point on the left hand side of the stem where the petal, the first petal, meets. You could start on the other side if you want, but we'll call this point P because it's starting the petals. And you can see from our prototype here that you probably guess how it's going to work now. We're going to work with a doubled thread until we get to here. Then split the thread up, go down, up with the single thread, double it again over here, and then it gets split up again. We come down here with the single thread, up there with the thread doubled again, double over here, continue on with the doubled thread and attach here. And at every point that we're meeting that stem there, we're going to make sure that we couch stitch across the stem cordon as well. Okay, so let's make sure this first point is couched right through the middle, and I have a knot to start off my couching thread coming through from the back. So I'm going across that cordon of the stem to start, and I'm going to do that twice if I can find my hole from this distance. Where is the darn hole? There is it. Yeah. So I've got that twice before it the doubled thread can be put together, and I can continue on my merry way. So that's the first point, the point of attachment. And we are going to do our tiny little stitches across that doubled thread, and then when we get to this tip of the leaf, which, oh, I'm losing track of it, but I think that was point E. When we get to point E, we're going to couch across, holding these double threads onto that tip of the leaf, because that'll keep the whole structure, the scaffolding structure of our piece of lace holding together well. So two little stitches together right the way across both lots of threads. Okay, and then continue on, and I'll meet you when we get to this little junction up here. So now this is done exactly the way we did the leaf, and we've split our doubled thread up, and we've done 2 stitches at the corner, and we're about to head down with a single strand down here following our little chalk line, and put a few stitches in there. We don't have to worry about them being too close together on the way down. Then we're going to put 2 stitches down here, attaching it, make sure it attaches to the stem cordon as well, and with our close stitches come back up with the double thread and come back to this point. Then we're going to continue on with the double thread and do the same for each little line between the petals. So I'll meet you when I get back over here to the end point and show you how it looks, or how it should look at that stage. Okay, right, we're all finished. We just have to get rid of the ends of our doubled thread the same way we did at the bottom of the leaf down here, and tuck them for a few stitches in either direction under the cordon, and then over couch them with our threaded needle, and we're ready to start the stitching then. So you're going to learn a few new stitches, utilize a few stitches you learned already, and some tips and tricks, but that's all ahead of us. So see you in the next video.